Welcome to episode 88 of the Loane Hockey Podcast, where I want to talk about the game in Prague between the New Jersey Devils and the Buffalo Sabres thus far. And the game's still going on right now. It's 3-0 Devils currently, as I say this, after two periods. And what has really stood out with the Devils in terms of their style of plays, they had a rocky preseason, but they've bounced back thus far, and they've had a really good foundational game. They've had a really good game in terms of their neutral zone play, their forecheck, and being able to create sustained offense in that sense. But I really like their neutral zone reloading and how quickly they've been able to transition from defense to offense and being able to quickly transition the puck in possession scenarios inside the neutral zone. And so with Devils, they have a lot of puck movers up front. They have a lot of activity in terms of how they're able to move the puck, how they're able to create sustained possession. Sheldon Keefe likes to incorporate nuances not only in reload sequences, but also in the forecheck in the O zone as well. And so with the Devils thus far, they've really created sustained impact in how they've been able to create offense, generate offense, and be able to have efficiency in how they're able to execute in those sequences. And I wanted to talk about some players on the Devils side more than the Sabres side that have stood out this far because the Devils have had a lot of players throughout this game really stand out and they've been really good. And so outside of Nico Hischier, who's had 2 points in this game thus far and a couple shots, 3 shots in total, outside of him, we know how good he is. But in terms of one of the newcomers that has actually stood out, and he's had a 2 point game thus far, a goal and a primary assist and one shot on net, which was the goal. And Jonathan Kovacevic coming over from Montreal midsummer in a trade to New Jersey. And Kovacevic has really stood out. He's more of a shutdown style defenseman, but in this game, he's been really good offensively. He's been really good with his activation habits. He's been really good at anticipating sequences. He's been really good at anticipating when to step up, when not to. And again, Sheldon Keefe likes to have activity from their Ds, so he's going to be relied upon a little bit more offensively, but not necessarily a ton. So he's been impressive, and obviously he's a ranged defenseman, 6'5", who can move the puck. He can play a two-way game. He can play a shutdown game. He can close gaps. He can kill plays with the stick and his reach and the radius at which he's able to defend. And at the same time, he still understands many different components of offensive situations underratedly well. And he had a goal, like I said before, but the primary assist was really noticeable in the sense, and I wrote about this earlier, is how on the play, he recognized the space on the strong side half wall where the puck was, and he was able to close and get into that space. So he was able to anticipate the space first and foremost, but he's also able to recognize the timing, when to pinch, and when to activate, and when to be available. So once he was able to activate off the F3 forecheck from New Jersey from Eric Holla, they were able to get a forced pass up the strong side half wall that ended up in a turnover. Kovacevic was able to quickly catch the puck, and then Stefan Nozen said that wrong. But anyway, so he was in the slot, he was positioned in the slot, and he was able to get a received pass from Kovacevic, and then he was able to rip the top shot. Absolutely excellent shot. And then what I noticed on the second play and the second point of the game from Kovacevic in the first period, let alone, was his goal was where in the ozone possession, it was a D-to-D pass. He was paired with Jonas Siegenthaler. So he got a D-to-D pass from Siegenthaler. And then immediately off the catch, he uses a Mohawk pivot. So way better than any other style pivot because the Mohawk pivot allowed him to change the angle quickly. And he was able to not rely on stick handle. So inside that Mohawk pivot, he didn't have to rely on excessive stick handling or puck handling. He was just able to catch the puck, not stick handle, use the Mohawk pivot to change the angle and quickly generate a shot off that. And what I really liked about it is the weight transfer that he had on it because he had a loaded front leg, the front toe and his front leg were both pointed directly at the net, so it allowed for power and accuracy and direction in terms of where players are going to shoot. He had his back foot and his back leg hyperextended straight back, so that way he was able to again get that front leg extension and that fully loaded front leg. He had knee bend in his front leg. He had power generated through his body, his stick, and his hands. And his bottom hand, he was essentially able to use it as like a lever or a catapult. So think along those lines in terms of how he's able to release the puck. So that way he can generate maximum power and velocity on the shot. So it was a really good shot, and it was textbook because I wanted to write about it because it was textbook and how he's able to shoot it. And not often you see players shoot it like that and shoot it with precision, accuracy, but also efficiency. And the efficient weight transfer in what he was able to execute allowed him to score so effortlessly on the goal and be able to get an open shot lane, create it, and then be able to create the opportunity out of it. It was so good. It was so noticeable, and it was really intriguing to watch. And in terms of other standouts, like we know this is Seamus Casey's first game. He's actually looked good thus far. Seamus Casey's actually looked good. He brings, I'm trying to think of a good comp for him. And this is a Michigan comp, not necessarily the same player, very different in terms of potential, but Quinn Hughes stylistically. I'm talking pure style. I'm not talking offensive potential. I'm talking pure style. He resembles a lot of Quinn Hughes. And this is a really good example because they both played at Michigan. So that works out in its favor. But at the same time, Seamus Case is so good as at using his feet inside deception to get out of troubling situations. So that way he's able to find space, separate from defenders, separate from forecheckers, and be able to gain space individually. So he's really manipulative with his feet, and you especially notice in the ozone blue line, that's a lot of where it comes from. He's gonna be an interesting player to watch. I don't envision him playing all season with the Devils, especially with the depth that they have on the right side and on defense in general. They have a healthy Dougie Hamilton. Simon Nemec could very well be a consistent second pairing guy this year. You have Kovacevic there. There's a lot of other options there that can change the makeup of this Devils defense. But Seamus Casey's a guy that really stands out on the offensive side. He's really flashy. He's really fun to watch. He's exciting to watch from a raw fan's perspective. That's the most intriguing thing about him is he draws attention from the eye right away. You're able to notice him directly because of his flair and how up tempo he is. He's really unique, but he's been good. He's stood out. He hasn't generated any points yet, but at the same time, he's really noticeable in terms of his details and how he's able to present himself offensively in that sense. And then a couple other players outside the star ones, like we know Jack Hughes is good, we know Jesper Brod's good, we know Dougie Hamilton's good, but in term and Dawson Mercer, of course, Dawson Mercer, I love his forechecking details, and he's so active with his speed and tenacity and his angular play in the forecheck. But in terms of one more, Paul Cotter has actually been an interesting one. And he was acquired from Vegas for Alexander Holtz. He's not necessarily going to be a super up-tempo offensive guy, but a guy who can play a checking game and can contribute in a bottom nine role. And he's a guy who can play with speed in the ozone, play with speed on the forecheck, be able to utilize that to his advantage so that way he can execute not only on the forecheck, but being able to create space inside the offensive zone. And Cotter's a guy, again, he's not going to be relied upon as an offensive player. He's going to be relied upon more for his checking details and how he's able to present himself as a forechecking player and how he's able to create forecheck turnovers and that type of thing. So he's not flashy offensively. He's more of a north-south player in terms of offensive details. He doesn't necessarily stand out in any sort of way in terms of offensive play, but at the same time, he's going to be a player who could very well be a contributor inside, like I said, a bottom nine role or that something along those lines. So that way he could still contribute to the Devils and be able to generate some offense, but not necessarily a ton at the same time out of that as well.